in thy light, there is light.
Hello, welcome to Pcgtv Sports Time with Jerome. My name is Jerome Ochri. What are we talking about this week? This week is the Super Clash and all the conversation about football in Ghana, especially the local Premier League, the Ghana Premier League. It's about Hearts and Kotoko. There will be other matches, but then the focus is on the Super Clash in Accra between Hearts and Kotoko. Kotoko are close to winning the league title. Hearts of Oak not so close, but then they can spoil the party for Kotoko. And it will do a lot for the confidence of the team, and especially for the future of Coach Ouattara, who is the Hearts of Oak coach. So we'll be looking at these issues and see whether or not Kotoko has what it takes to beat Hearts of Oak, or Hearts of Oak will have the strength to stop Kotoko on their rise on the league table. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, the show continues. Welcome back. For our scripture for today, I take you to John chapter 2, verses 4 to 8. I'm not going to read the whole text, but what I like about that text is the fact that Jesus and his mother had gone to a wedding ceremony where there was a shortage of wine. And he performed his first miracle by turning water into wine. What I like about the text is that the servants obeyed Jesus, and also Mary. Mary told them, look, whatever he tells you, do it. And they just complied. And there Jesus performed his miracle. The encouragement to you is that sometimes you don't have to ask questions. You just have to be obedient to the word of God. And God will show forth whatever he has for you. We'll go for another break. When we come back, the show continues. Welcome back. So, as I was telling you today, we are discussing the Super Clash, Hearts of Oak versus Asante Kotoko, Ghana's biggest football game when it comes to the Premier League. And with me to discuss this game is someone who has covered the Super Clash so many times. I mean, he's well versed in the issues of local football here and football across the world. But here the focus, it's on Ghana. He works with Joy FM or Joy Sports Multimedia, and he's one of the broadcast journalists there, sports journalists there. His name is Victor Achu Tamaklo. Victor, thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for the honor of the invitation,
okay.
Jerome.
So, as I have been saying, it is the weekend of the Super Clash. Yeah. I mean, previously you would have seen in town flags of the two teams, especially the home team, Hearts of Oak here. And that would have given you a signal that something indeed is coming up this Sunday. I don't know, maybe you have seen it. I haven't seen it. What do you think is happening with the Super Clash such that we have some few hours to the game and you cannot really catch the fever? I mean, sense that the Super Clash is coming on. What has gone wrong?
I think what has gone wrong is what happens to every product if you leave it dormant without a deliberate marketing plan.
Okay.
Irrespective of whatever goodwill you may have at any point, people's tastes evolve, right? People's loyalties change. Their interest will change. Yes, you will retain a certain semblance of the loyalty that you are used to. But if you do not respond to the changing needs of consumers over time, and in a very competitive space like our football clubs operate, you will lose touch of what you used to have. And so 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there were not as many options to the football fan today as there are, right? So in a weekend, the football fan, if they didn't go out to Dansoman, if they didn't go to Sekendi Jendu Park, if they didn't go to Tamale Park, getting high quality football to watch would be very difficult. You would have to wait on Monday evening to go and watch our big brother Club Nayabwa.
Exactly.
But that situation has changed. Today, in your car, when you're sitting in traffic, you can be following the games all of these pay TV subscriptions allow you to stream the game on your phone. Over time, people have built a certain relationship and affinity for those products. So Premier League, La Liga, and the players who bring them joy. So growing up, I'm sure the first 4 or 5 players that you formed any kind of affinity to were local players, because they didn't bring you joy because they were the most handsome or because you saw them often, but because they played well, they won matches, they created memorable moments that registered and stayed with you. So over time, that affinity, and that's why in the early 90s, those who were growing up will tell you about Joe Famiye. They will tell you about all the big players that they used to see. Even for the younger generation who were born in the 90s, still, there was the Stephen Odro, Michael Osei, Emba Power, Emmanuel Ojogu, Shamokwe. There was that generation that we grew up on. So by the time we started making sense of football, the average football fan knew subconsciously that the Super Clash is a big deal.
I agree with you. I agree with you in the sense that growing up in the 80s to the 90s, I didn't see Joe Debra until maybe I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was either off the scene or he was just going off the scene. But that is what drew me closer to local football. Yeah. And I mean, everything you have said is true. We hope that whatever quality that this product has lost would see some changes, so that maybe the present generation will find that affinity you are talking about. I want us to look at what the Premier League managers, the Ghana Premier League managers are calling the final push. And in this final push, they're talking about the top 4 teams, which has Gold Stars leading with 53 points. Then Nations FC also with 51 points as the second place team. Yeah. Then Heart of Lions, third placed with 50 points. Before Asante Kotoko, fourth, also with 50 points. So that's what you see on your screen. Victor, tell me, is it actually the final push, or you think that this is
this will be match with 30.
Okay.
So we're just a month away from concluding the season. And I think in the last 3 weeks, we've seen some freakish results. Mm-hmm. Freakish because, for example, nobody expected Vision to beat Gold Stars. Right? I certainly did not expect it.
For a team that is leading the table and one that is struggling to survive,
to even get goals in matches. So, and the performance was very bizarre. I don't know if it is the nerves, because this is the first time Gold Stars have been involved in a title race. So the pressure can get to them.
Yeah, of course.
Also, when teams like Kotoko make a managerial change, like it or not, it rings around, it reverberates, right? And people begin to wait and see what is going to happen. And so that results, Kotoko struggles. I think Pando Hearts of Lions failing to pick points in games that I thought they would win is what is still throwing this in the balance. And this morning when I was looking through the league table and looking ahead to this game, I did so with a lot of regrets, because I think the running could have been a bit more exciting.
Why?
A month ago, Kotoko were up there. 5 weeks ago, Hearts were 3 points from the top spot. If they had beaten Dreams FC, they would have moved top of the league.
I get your point. Because
we could have had a Hearts Kotoko.
That slip to Dreams was surprising to me as
and they've never recovered since then. They've never recovered since then. Kotoko themselves, I think 2 weeks after that, had their own problems and have never really recovered. But I think this is a watershed moment for Kotoko especially.
I mean, talking about how Hearts of Oak slipped and are struggling to recover from that, and also Kotoko having to change managers at that point, brings me to the issue of coaching. And I want us to look at that. There's some interesting information the Ghana Premier League managers have put out there, and they say, so that's what you have on your screens. Abubakar Ouattara has gone winless against Kotoko in 2 league games. So I want you to follow this, and then you come in with the analysis. Then the Hearts of Oak coach is yet to score against Kotoko and has conceded 3 goals also against Kotoko. If you flip the coin and look at Karim Zito, who is Kotoko's coach now, Zito will be facing Abubakar Ouattara as Asante Kotoko coach. As Asante Kotoko coach for the first time on Sunday. Then secondly, Zito has played against Hearts of Oak twice this season, once as Dreams FC coach, and then winning one, drawing one, scoring one, with 2 clean sheets.
Yeah.
Is it looking like Zito has the upper hand, or we have to wait and see what Ouattara will do to turn the tables?
I think Zito has the upper hand. I think Kotoko have the upper hand.
Okay.
Zito is not new to this fixture. I think his first involvement will be 2005 when he was assistant, in the same year that he unfortunately got robbed in Accra here at Kwashima.
Yeah.
But so, and at the time, you know that story better. It was a properly run Kotoko with a bigger capacity at that time. So in terms of performance levels and standard, I mean, the Hearts team they beat that year had just won the CAF Confederation Cup, and they still beat Hearts by 3-1 in Kumasi. But I say Kotoko have got the upper hand because of the two teams, they have a clearer tactical identity.
Okay.
They have more match winners than Hatzevuk, more match winners in the Alberts, Amwa, and then Kwame Poku. They have bigger personalities in the team, Justice Blay, and this is why I give credit to Karim Zito, because conversely, that same decision was one that I never understood when Ogum decided to drop those players. Maybe the pressure got to him and he bowed to what the supporters were saying, but it was smart on Zito's part to reinstate the big players in his very first game because he needed the results. Whatever the issues were, they needed to forge ahead. And importantly, it worked because Justice Blay was involved in the goal. Kwame Poku provided that goal. Baba Yaya as well played a good game. But if I look at the way the two teams have played, Hartlepool have looked disfigured for the best part of the season. In fact, as far back as last year when Ouattara got the job, there was a point where people spoke at length about how solid they look defensively. But all of that has gone out of the window. In the last 10 matches that they've played, they've only won twice, right? And at home, Hearts are one of the worst performing teams in the league. They are, I think, about 15th. They've picked only 24 points out of the 14 matches that they have played. They don't score goals at home. They've scored fewer goals than matches played. They've scored 12 goals in the 14 matches that they've played at home. That is not a very good metric.
Yeah, not at all.
That's not. And to the specific context of this fixture, what gives me confidence that Kotoko have the upper hand and should, I'll probably say they will win, not should, is the fact that Kotoko have gotten to a point where the Hearts players fear the fixture. They panic.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Because, I mean, from the Hearts of Oak I have known covering.
They
Hearts
lived
Kotoko
for
matches.
this fixture.
Yeah, I mean, they rather will have the psychological edge over Kotoko.
But this is why I say this.
Okay.
The sheer nature of repeated mistakes, repeated match-winning mistakes, or errors that lead directly to goals. If it happens once or twice, that's fine. But when for 4 consecutive games, high-profile Hearts players are making mistakes that result in the goals that win the matches, it speaks to one thing. Psychologically, they are not in the right frame of mind. And the fear is not because Kotoko are too good, but the fear is in a certain admission that Hearts themselves are not good enough.
Okay.
That is why, so in the game against Kumasi, the game was practically over.
Yeah.
Pointless mistake.
Yeah, pointless.
Then last season, both games. Then the season before, I'm clear in my mind that the boys panic.
Okay.
And it stems from the fear or the admission that we are not ready. We don't have the quality to compete at this level. Kotoko just need to go out there. And to be fair, yes, I will admit, Kotoko have not been the most consistent. But among the two teams, they have a clearer identity. Ogum instilled that. There is a clear path to go. They have got more match winners than Accra Hearts. So, and if you take Albert Samoa and Kwame Opoku alone, they have more goals than Accra, the entire Hearts attack combined.
I get it. And Achu is giving us very interesting statistics. We are going to go for a break. When we come back, we are also going to look at the head-to-head. And I have one question for Achu. I don't know what his answer will be, but I think if you are a Hearts fan watching this, maybe it is tilting towards Kotoko's favor, but maybe my question will throw Achu's analysis off. Let's go for a break and come back. Welcome back. So, as I was telling you, it's the Super Clash this weekend, Hearts of Oak, Kotoko. Very interesting analysis coming from my guest, Victor Achu Tamaklo from Joy Sports. And I want to put this to you, Achu. everything you have said appears to favor Asante Kotoko.
Yeah.
But there's this notion that, look, you look at the playbook, you look at the numbers, you look at the tactics, everything may favor Asante Kotoko. And I want to run this by you and then put my question. So if you look at and you have that on your screen, you look at the road to the Super Clash, the team statistics, all meetings between Hearts and Kotoko since 1958. And this is relative to the Premier League only. 115 matches played between the two sides. Hearts of Oak have won 38. Kotoko have won 39. There have been 38 draws. That's very interesting. 38 draws between the two sides.
Too many.
Yeah, too many draws. And and if you go to the losses, Hearts, of course, because they've won 38, they have lost 39. Kotoko, because they've won 39, have lost 38. Now, here is the catch for me. Goals scored. Kotoko, 133 goals. Hearts of Oak, 121. Goals conceded. Hearts of Oak, 133. Kotoko, 121. I'm sorry, but it's looking like even the all-time records favor Kotoko.
It does.
But the point and the question I want to ask is, some would say Hearts Kotoko matches have
Don't
always
follow
defied
logic.
this logic. Don't you think so too?
It is true. But the era when it was true was for a simple reason. You had naturally gifted players who had strong personality. So the team can go through a very difficult period where things are not working well. But they can rise to the occasion and make nonsense of the pre-match logic. I'll give you a simple example. 2008, Hearts drew 3-0 with Kotoko in Kumasi.
Yeah.
At the time, I think it was one of the most exciting Kotoko teams I've seen in the modern era.
I mean, same as me.
Yeah.
I always say it's the best since 2000.
Yeah. And the trajectory of those players and where they ended up gives credence to that. Harris Naffel became Ghana's best fullback in the modern era.
Yeah.
Samuel Nkum, 2 World Cups to his name.
Yeah.
Eric Bequin,
Yeah.
and all of those players.
Nia J,
Nia
Jordan
J.
Opoku,
So
Sulama Abdullahi.
exactly,
Number
an established
one for-
international
Yeah.
for Burkina Faso. So it was a great team for all intents and purposes. The only blemish was that they couldn't replicate that on the continent. But even in that year, they made a group stage
Yes.
of the
And
Confederation
it's one
Cup.
of the few times Kotoko have made a group stages in 20 years.
Yes. So Hearts went into that game badly out of color with strong administrative issues.
Yeah.
And in that year, they had, what's his name, Ekoganza, Don Bortier, and all of those players having contractual standoff with the club.
Yeah.
But the week before Hearts played Kotoko, the players had a meeting and decided that everyone who was registered for the season, but for whatever reason was no longer part of the team, had to come. And they convinced the management that for the sake of this fixture, let's bury the hatchets and let's forge ahead. Ekoganza came from Cape Coast. In that game, he scored twice.
Yeah.
He had not trained for over a month. That is what strong personality gives you.
Okay.
That is what natural ability gives you. So, and we know Ekoganza's story from Ibisuadorf's right through to when he came to Accra Hearts. And there are many of similar stories, right? If you go back into the Hearts Kotoko situations where maybe it was not an administrative or management issue, but maybe someone was just out of color. But their performance on the match day was not something that would surprise anyone because they've done it before. If you look through the two sets of teams now, there is no body of work to refer to say that it doesn't follow logic, right? Because in the past, when it was happening, it was because we believed that these players can turn it around.
I get it.
When Stephen Odro had his standoff with between RTU, Ashgold, and Kotoko, he hadn't played football for a whole year.
Yeah.
In his first Super Clash, he scored that wonderful free kick against Hearts.
Yeah.
So that's why I said personality and natural ability.
Yeah. I remember that game so much because there was a joke after the match within the Kotoko fans.
Yeah.
You know, when Kotoko wins, it's a different attitude altogether. And they were joking that the Hearts of Oak defense were confused. And Samir J, who was then the goalkeeper for Hearts of Oak, asked the defenders why they didn't stop the ball. And the defenders in turn asked him, the ball crossed us. You were the last man. Why
didn't you save it?
that is to just illustrate the point that Stephen Odro had a knack for, such shots. And if you don't pay attention, he was going to beat you. But Victor, talking about these players who had the ability to turn situations, as we speak, and again, I refer to the Ghana Premier League stats, as we speak, in terms of player statistics, one player that comes up so well for Hearts of Oak, and again, you can see that on your screen, it's Maoli Wayo. I mean, I don't know why you are laughing, but I'll come to that. And then if you flip the coin, Kotoko to it's Albert Amwa.
Yeah.
Now, this is the head-to-head between the two.
Puku.
Well, I don't want to go there because
you want to even it.
In that case, I won't be able to ask my question because Kwame Opoku, he can strike on any day and Hearts of Oak will be in trouble. But I just want to keep him out of this discussion for some time. I mean, you are free to go there. I don't want to go there. But the head-to-head between these two players look like this. 24 appearances for Wayo, 20 for Albert Amwa.
Yeah.
So in terms of time play, but surprisingly, in terms of time play, it looks like Amwa has played more matches. I mean, more time.
Yeah. So he starts more frequently.
More frequently than Wayo. So Wayo has done 1,172 minutes. Albert Amwa has done 1,542. Now, goals scored. I think that's where you have a point. Goals scored. Wayo has 5. Albert has 8.
Yeah.
In terms of MVPs, surprisingly, Wayo beats him by 1. Yeah. It's 3-2. Does this give any clearer picture as to?
So I will give the context to these numbers.
I like that.
Wayo started. Of course, he was a big money signing from King Faisal. He started the season. After the first 4 matches, he lost his position.
Okay.
So that's why he plays a lot of games, but often from the bench. Now, the MVPs he won were because he came off the bench and won the games for Hearts of
Oak. Okay.
Not necessarily because
he was
from minute 1 to 90.
Player.
No.
Okay.
So you remember the Mediama game, the Vision FC games, I think Young Apostles as well, and then Accra Lions. Those are games that won him the MVPs. I will explain Albert Amwa's because beyond the numbers, Albert Amwa had about a 5 to 6 week break where he was injured. Right? So when he gets injured like that, he needs to now get back into shape and start from scratch. And that's not always an easy thing.
It's not. It's never been.
Kotoko being in the title race, because in the first round, Kotoko were badly off color. But his goals kept them in the competition, kept them in the running until they figure themselves out. And that's a big part of it to him. And that's why I feel for games like this, players like that have more to draw from. Because over the season, up until he got injured, for me, he was the best striker in the league.
Okay.
Right. And then Kwame Opoku has come in. And I think stylistically, the two of them complement themselves so well. That's why Kotoko have signed other players, Samson Eduku, I think Fernando, the Nigerian. But more often than not, when the two have been available, they will start. Right. Because Albert Amwa combines very well. He can come up short and drop deeper, combine with his teammates, and drag defenders out of position. Kwame Opoku is more direct, and I think he's more alive in and around the box, even though he can still combine well with passes. But it is in being consistent that they find their true self. And I think those are the reasons I believe Kotoko have got the advantage.
Well, I don't know why this conversation is favoring Kotoko at almost every level. But there is something in Hearts of Oak that, between Benjamin Asari of Hearts of Oak and then Mohamed Kamara. I don't know